Yeah. So. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Poetry Salon cast. I am your host, Trisha Faye Hefner, coming to everyone from my place in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And today I'm going to be interviewing Scott Ferry, who is coming to us from his car in Seattle. Very busy poet, making the time to come talk with us. Scott is the author of so many books that I can't possibly name them all without taking up all of our time on this podcast. But most recently, his most recent book, I'm going to try to get the name right here. The most recent book is Blood on the Map of Man from Luchador Press. Please welcome to the Poetry Salon cast, Scott Ferry, Ferry. That's how it's pronounced, isn't it, Scott?
Yeah, it's pronounced that. Thank you, Trisha. I've been following your interviews. I saw as Allison Hurwitz the other day. That was a great interview. Love her. Um, so I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. You're one of the poets that I know by reputation, and I think we've been friends on Facebook for a very long time, and just have a lot of kind of crossover friends in common and things. And I think this is the first time we're talking one-on-one, but I do remember seeing you at AWP, I think 2 years ago in LA.
That's
Uh,
right. I think I came up to, I'm like, I know her from Facebook. And I just said, hey, I'm Scott. Hello. I do that to a lot of people at AWP. I'm like, I think I know you, kind of. Hi.
Yes, AWP for me has become the place where I can go and feel like I'm a minor celebrity, because it's one of those places where you walk through the book fair and everything, and people you don't know will say, "Hey, I know you. Hey, I see your stuff on Facebook all the time. I read this poem of yours. Congratulations on this thing or that thing." They don't ask for your autograph necessarily, but it's the only place I know of where I can just be recognized by people who I only sort of know, and they only sort of know me. And of course, we're doing that reciprocally because we're also the ones being fans of the other people we know from Facebook and
Yeah,
social
it's
media and
kind
so
of like
forth.
poetry celebrity is kind of narrow, right? But there it becomes huge
Yes.
because we're all in one place, right? So yeah, it's really neat. And you see people that you expect to be a certain way, and they totally are that way. And
Mhm.
you expect other people to be a certain way, and they're totally not that way. And you're like, oh, okay. So there's always some surprise, and
Yes.
most of the people are just super lovely.
Oh yeah, I love it. I sometimes feel like the poets who are the most serious in their work are also the ones that crack the most jokes in real life when you talk to them.
Right.
So yeah, sometimes it's just the personality that comes across on the page is very different from the personality that shows up in person, which can be fun. I mean, that's kind of the point of getting to meet our poetry celebrities in person is getting to know them, not just through their work, but like the person behind the work. So, anyways, knowing your work, I had no idea how tall you were until I actually met you at AWP. Uh,
Oh, yeah. I'm like, almost 6 foot.
Yeah, that's pretty tall.
I
So
think for it's weird. I think for men, it's like in the normal life, it's like I see a lot of 6 foot people, but for some reason in the poetry world, it seems like really big people are like, oh, you're really big and you're a poet. That's weird.
mhm.
It's almost like you don't expect there to be like a bulky person like me, like writing poetry, but there it is.
Did people ever tell you while you were growing up, like, you need to play basketball because you're so tall or anything like that?
Well, it's funny because I was kind of like skinny, um, and and just not bulky like this when I was in high school. I was a swimmer, a water polo player.
Hmm.
So I I only bulked up when I was like 24. So I mean, people look at me now like, were you a football player? I'm all, no, not at all. Uh, not even a little bit, you know? Um, yeah. So I usually get football, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not even close. But
That
it's
makes
all good.
sense. You know,
Yeah.
I love getting to do these podcasts. I sometimes joke with people that the podcast is here so that poets can talk about anything but poetry.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we can get very much off topic, but of course for poets, the things that are off topic will often feed into our work anyways. So what is off topic to a poet anyways, you know?
Right. I mean, I'm really glad that I have a job that lets me kind of mentally meander, um,
Mhm.
and and have time to just sit and ponder. That's great. And I have like a little nature preserve where I go and walk at lunch and take photos, and um, it's really neat. I work as a an RN at the VA, but it's kind of like I was telling you before, kind of like a desk job where I just basically follow veterans and write inform the doctors of where they are in the hospital. And, it gives me a lot of time to think. Sometimes I write, sometimes you know, I'm able to just kind of let uh, things come up
Yeah.
and have a little bit of time through the day to like write stuff if I need to. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, I think there's some really interesting book to be written about the jobs of the poets, you know, like who had what job and how it influenced their writing. Because we know like T.S. Eliot worked for Lloyd's of London, and then there's also other famous poets who just were, you know, very impoverished and never really held down any job, and what did that do for them in their writing? So that's really interesting. I suppose a job that allows you some free time, um, and certainly to go for a walk at lunch and get to go explore the natural environment. That must be really wonderful.
Yeah. And I've started probably about 3 years ago. I started doing a lot of photography, and
Hmm.
that's like really, I think, interestingly informed my poetry. I'm sorry,
Mm.
I'm kind of like have my windows down near a park and there's jets flying overhead, but that's what it is. But just knowing how it's kind of like making things simple and powerful at the
Hmm.
same time in an image and bringing it down to its lowest common, like a lowest functional state. Like, if I
Mm.
am I going to cut this rose down to just the rose, or I'm going to get a subsection of the rose, or I'm going to get a subsection of the subsection of the rose, or I'm going to pan out and show the whole bush. It's kind of like, what do you want to do in your poem? Do you want it to be um, short and powerful? Do you want it to be sweeping? Like it, it's interesting how one art can inform the other and help you make decisions about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's a perfect segue to talk now about two of your poems. Now we're gonna talk about them separately, but what's interesting about this first poem, I want to say to the listeners here, I usually ask the featured poet, the poet I'm interviewing, to tell me a poem that they want to talk about, and I choose a poem that I want to talk about and find out more about. Scott and I chose the same poem. So that's great. So we're going to start with this one, and then fortunately, you've got another poem that you do want to talk about as well. So that's good for us. And let's see, I'm going to do the embarrassing thing and probably show you too much of my screen. You can see all the mini tabs open. But the poem that you sent me is
Dun,
here.
dun,
Great.
dun. Oh,
Uh, s- so if you're this will be up on YouTube, but this will also be released as an audio. So if you're just listening, you know, you can just listen along. But if you are watching the YouTube, you can also probably read along with us. I know some of us are visual learners, so that can be a nice addition here to make this a little larger so we can read it better. Scott, no, this is from the most recent book, yes?
Yeah, it's called Blood on the Map of Man. It was written in April of last year. I did the poem a day thing,
Mm.
and some days I got two poems. So they're all days of the week, basically of April. That's where you get the titles.
There
Um,
you go. So all of the
and
poems in this book are just numbered. They don't have titles, they have numbers, and of course we can do the traditional thing where we call them the name of the title becomes the first line of the poem, or the first line is what we refer to as the title, as with Shakespeare's sonnets, as with a lot of the Emily Dickinson poems. So we can call this poem Scott Ferry poem 15 or I am 26.
correct.
All
All
right.
right.
Okay. And when you're ready, just give it a read.
All right. 15. I'm 26. My words break and fall. Can't speak to humans, hold my body together with insomnia. Shake on my mother's couch, my first career a slow failure. Ask God or a future version of myself for help. I listen, cold dial tone, a vague ache. You will eventually know, something says. And when I look back, I know not to reach across time and comfort myself. This is the 40 days in the desert, Gilgamesh's 12 days of darkness, the whale's acidic stomach. There are reasons to slaughter yourself and weep, which are not known to those who slaughter themselves and weep. And have I emerged at 55? I have some ash written on ash I can show you. I can sing a clear song in the night.
Okay, I really quite enjoy this poem, and now I have to remind myself to stop the share so it's back to our faces. Um, but I'm gonna go looking back and forth here. So tell me a little bit about the genesis of this poem. It's called, or the first line is I'm 26, but you didn't write it at the age of 26. So what got you thinking in this vein when you were working on this?
I was thinking about, I think I've gone through some dark times, and I think this was the one of the first really dark times I went through, um, where I was really kind of alone, um, and had to work out of the darkness myself, and was just kind of asking why, because
Mhm.
I mean, my life up till then was a lot of hard work. I was a swimmer, and got good grades. Like I was always busy doing something, right? I didn't have an easy life. I worked hard, but it was the first time I was really like, okay, the hard work didn't pay off. You're not succeeding. Hard work does not equal success. There is no justice in the world, right? Um, it's not working out the way I was taught it would,
Mm-hmm.
right? And fuck, right? So
Wait, can we just say like the summary was just and fuck. I turned 26 and fuck. Like that's a poem on its own.
I think a lot of us went through it that age, right? Like I think a lot of people, so my daughter is 14, she really went through it at 13 and 14, right? A lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
Went through
Mm-hmm.
a real dark stretch. And I went through a little bit later at like, 25, 26, 27. So, yeah. So I think that through that time, and also my father passed away um, recently to then, and I
Mm,
felt like I kind of like got a glimpse into the spirit world during that time because it was just a very strange thing when he passed. I was there. And then right afterwards, I could really feel him around me and my sister. It was like a
mm,
very palpable. And I was like, wow, I really feel him here. And it's not something that a lot of people will admit, this kind of a feeling, but it I really like opened me up to any kind of what you would call spirituality at that point too. But
mm.
I really needed it because I went through some dark times of like starting teaching high school, not really working out, starting to teach high school again, not really working out, trying to figure out what I was doing, feeling like a failure, um, not really having much luck in relationships.
Yeah.
Um, just in the mud. And it just, like I said, the things that we were told were going to happen if we worked hard just weren't working out at all. Um,
You
and
were you were just you were just like uh singing my what is that song like killing me softly with your song. You were telling my whole life with your words right now. This is such a mirror experience here. I
yes,
I want to ask, um when you were in high school and when you were in school, like, do you feel like school was okay for you? Was it easy? You knew what the teachers wanted and how to give it to them and how to get the good grade, and then you got out into the real world and found it wasn't quite so straightforward. Am I reading that correctly?
yeah, I think so. I think that well, I was just recently diagnosed with ADHD. So I think that I did have some struggles in school, but I
Uh-huh.
kind of like I have that real quick working mind that goes with that, but it's not necessarily always reined in, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not focused. But I think the constant exercise and the swimming and water polo really like helped me
Hmm.
focus. But I think high school was relatively easy in terms of school and relationships and yeah, I mean, even college, not too hard besides, trying to be sober enough to make it to class and all of that,
I
just
have no
heading
idea what you're
into,
talking about. That I can't relate to at all.
you know, diving into hallucinogens and my brain melting five different ways and really discovering what's behind the veil in terms of all of that and but in terms of actually getting into the real world, I felt like I think it's more not necessarily in terms of that I wasn't prepared for it.
Hmm.
I think it was more in terms of my personality and my um, being a peacemaker in my family and a people pleaser and having to work through that and being like a target for narcissists and bullies my whole
Mm-hmm.
life because I was kind of the sensitive kid and felt deeply, had big reactions. So I was kind of an easy target if you wanted to get a reaction out of me, right? You're going to get
Yeah.
one. You're going to get one. And being a teacher, I had no clue how to act, how to control other people's behavior. None of that. I mean, I was way too nice. You know, I had no idea about how to be strict in a classroom. Nothing. So I think,
Um, how old
you
were
know,
you when you started teaching?
I was 24, 23,
And
pretty young.
what grade were you teaching?
I was teaching high school, all
Yeah,
high school.
yeah, probably some of the kids were like just only a few years younger than you are, and some of
Right,
them are
right.
almost your height, and their parents are
Yeah,
coming to you saying like, "How do I get my kid to do his homework?" And you're going, "Well, you're the one who had kids. Shouldn't you know the answer to that question?" Like,
yeah, yeah. I started, yeah, and I just didn't have that kind of background in my life experience, right? I was the youngest. I didn't have to regulate anybody except myself.
yeah,
So, I think it's only really been in the last like 5 to 10 years where I've really stopped being a people pleaser and stopped um, I'm in my villain era, I should say.
yeah.
Like I take care I take care of my family and my friends, but I also take care of myself. and I make it a priority where I didn't in the past, right?
Well,
So
it's such a
it's huge
shame.
shift.
Look, and congratulations to that. It is such a shame that we refer to that as the villain era when really that could be like, hey, just that's just a sign of good mental health, depending on how you do it. I mean, I've certainly known some people who set boundaries in a way that is, I'll just say inappropriate and unkind, but setting a boundary on its own is fine, especially if you do it in a way that's just thoughtful and straightforward. Let me ask you, as I said, I know this poem is something that you wrote at the age of 55, but it's reflecting back to being 26. And you don't say, I'm 55, reflecting back to being 26. You write it as a 26-year-old. And we find out at the end of the poem that, the speaker really is 55 now. Was there anything that triggered that? Anything that brought it up for you during the month of April as you were writing this?
Well, I was kind of like thinking about, wow, what if I could go back and give myself the confidence and the wisdom that I have now? That would be so nice. Did not have to go through those years and years of torment, And I'm like, is there a way to go back and, the physicists say that time is nonlinear at some point and that everything's
Hmm.
happening now, right? So is it possible to go back to that person, younger version of myself, and give that person a little bit of like, it's going to be fine. Um, just, trust in yourself. But then I remembered back to when I was there really asking, I mean, I was really asking for help from
Hmm.
from God, from whatever. I need some help here. I'm losing it, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I got really nothing. Um,
Hmm.
not that I really expected anything. Maybe I did. I don't know. But I'm like, well, it would be really nice to go back and give that younger version of myself something. But then I realized that's probably not smart to do because
Hmm.
I'm here now. I'm here now. And it's even more rich now that I've gone through everything I did. You know, some of us learn by other people's examples, and some of us have to trudge through the mud ourselves. And I feel like that was the second one.
Yeah, I think this is such a really rich topic. I will give this as a prompt at the poetry salon, and I've written on this myself as like, if I could talk to my 20-year-old someone who, what would I say? And would it even matter? Would she even listen? Probably not. She didn't really believe in listening to other people's advice anyways. So what's the point? Also,
Right.
just like what you said, like there's a phrase I really love. I wish I could get it correct and I wish I knew who to attribute it to, but something like wisdom is the thing that prevents you from making bad decisions, and you can only gain wisdom by making a series of bad decisions.
Right. Right. Right.
So
And as parent, as a parent, it's like you want your kids to not make the bad decisions, but inevitably they're going to go and make some bad decisions.
yeah, I think that's
Mm.
pretty inevitable.
It is.
Let me ask you this question. I feel when I was in that time frame, I had
Yeah.
discovered poetry and I loved poetry, but I was reading older poets. Like I didn't really come into contact with a lot of poets who were my age talking about these issues. Uh, Maybe that's just because I didn't know where to look. It may be that they were there and I don't think I did know where to find them. Have you found any books? Have you been reading anything from other people who are meditating on this experience, this particular time of their lives? Have you found anything that you would recommend, or are you writing this because there's not enough out there on that subject?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I relate to a lot of different stuff that I read. I read a lot of just contemporary poets that I know.
Mhm.
Um, and even back then, I was going to SoCal had a pretty good poetry slash slam poetry scene back then, and you could go find poetry readings that, I mean, and I was kind of in the poetry scene back then, and um, it was really great to be able to go and throw words around and listen to others and going through the torment. Um, but in terms of finding that exact thing that like that, I don't know if it really translates as much. I know the things I kind of gravitate toward are kind of unlike mine. Um,
Okay.
I like I like I like Gary Lemons a lot. He has a couple of books. The Book of Spells was great, and he has a
Mm,
new book. Um, I'm gonna kill myself. What if I remember this? Ay, ay, ay. Gary Lemon's new book, Collateral. Got it. Man, I thought I wasn't gonna be able to remember it. Amazing. Um, he goes not afraid to go through struggle and to come out the other side and see all the light in the dark. Um, and he's been through it. I mean, he gained some notoriety as a poet pretty young and then just didn't ever go into academia at all. He worked he worked with his hands, and he never became an academic. And so I
mm,
kind of relate to that as well. Um, and then I just did a book, well, last year, but it's just coming out with an Indian poet. Her name is Akriti Kuntal.
mhm,
Um, she's wonderfully surrealistic, but she's also very much in her body. Like
mm,
everything, her portal is her body. And for me, I feel like a lot of it, my portal is my body. I go to nature too, but it always come back to where I am, which is my flesh, right? My heart, my
yeah.
chest, you know? And so I find a lot of going through this kind of darkness through the body itself was what she does.
Mm.
Um, is kind of the way I do things. And when I read poetry like that, it really resonates.
On that note, I have your poem pulled up on my phone, so those who are watching can probably see that I keep looking up and down and up and down. I'm coming to this line. When I look back, I know not to reach across time and comfort myself. This is the 40 days in the desert. This is Gilgamesh's 12 days of darkness. Speaking of the darkness of the body, the whale's acidic stomach. There are reasons to slaughter yourself and weep, which are not known to those who slaughter themselves and weep. And have I emerged at 55? I know the 40 days in the desert. That one is pretty familiar to me. And I'm fuzzy on Gilgamesh. Can you say a little bit about the 12 days of darkness and how many whales have you been swallowed by? Where did that metaphor come from?
It's just, yeah, it's just, you know, being inside just this dark, wet, womb-like, but also hellish place, right?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, uh,
I mean, is that a conscious calling back to Jonah and the whale?
yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And then the um, 12 days of darkness is when Gilgamesh is trying to find everlasting life. He has to travel through 12 days of darkness to find the fruit, the vine of immortality. And
Mm,
when he finally finds it, he has it in his hands, and he sets it down for a second at the river, and the snake takes it and pulls it down to the bottom again. It's the snake being the snake, the Ouroboros. Everything is always shedding. Everything is always re reforming, eating
mhm.
itself, and being rebirthed. So eternal life is something that is really not. something attainable right here.
Darn.
So, right? Oh, fuck.
Yeah, I am 26 and fuck.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that. It's kind of like you're trying to find some safety or something to quote unquote save you, but it's just not going to be there. Um,
Mm,
the way you think it's going to be there, or the way you're
yeah.
taught it's going to be there. And so you're kind of having to find this faith or whatever your way out by yourself.
Mm,
And I think it's really valuable to do that, super valuable. And I think
yeah.
once once you've been through that and you come out the other side, um, you just have a way different perspective of everything. And there are people that live super comfortable lives. Like I don't know, I don't live their life, but it seems they do.
Hmm.
It wasn't me.
Yes, yeah, you do have to ask. It's another one of those truisms. Don't compare your insides to someone else's outsides. And just
Right.
comparison is the thief of joy. You don't know why someone seems to have it all figured out and you don't. And it's very silly to make those comparisons. You know, I teach poetry, so I get to talk to a lot of people who, to me, I sometimes look at and I'm like, wow, you've really got it figured out. And then I read their poems where they're talking about their life, and I realize, like, no, you got some stuff too that you're trying to figure out that we just
Yeah.
different stuff that we're trying to figure out, and we're
Right.
here to help each other. That brings me to the last couple quotes, the last couple couplets of this poem, where you ask, "Have I emerged at 55? I have some ash written on ash I can show you. I can sing a clear song in the night." I interpret that to mean, well, I can read you some poems. I've written you some poems which are ash upon ash. So not exactly glorifying the process there. And then I can sing a clear song in the night. I read that as being like, the night, it's all that angst and darkness and unknowing. And well, at least I can sing a clear song and maybe connect with other people. Um, so yeah, is there anything you want to say about what those final lines mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the process of writing poems that you sometimes you feel like you have something, ooh, this is really great. I really am onto something here. This is you feel alive and inspired and it's the stuff of life, like, oh, you're creating something. But then kind of like they're only words.
Mm,
Um, And so it's kind of like a letdown in the end, in a way. It's kind of like ash written on ash. And
yeah.
kind of what I'm writing about too is like what has been burned, right? And then I'm writing about what has been burned in words that have been burned, right? Like it's like the thing where I don't know which fairy tale it is, but most of the time if somebody finds some gold in the forest, in the deep forest, and they bring it out, and as soon as they bring it to the daylight it turns to ash in their hands.
Oh, I don't know this fairy tale, but that makes sense. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, oh, I have this great insight, but it's not necessarily transferable to
Yeah.
others, number one, and it doesn't really have merit of its own right. Secondly, it's just something you've learned.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a little bit you know, the deception of education and just growing up with adults who are supposed to teach you things. And I'm not necessarily saying this to fault find with the adults in my life. I mean, they all did their best, but they give advice and you kind of think, well, I'll do what they tell me to do and it'll all be fine. And then you get to that period of adulthood and you just realize, like, no, it's anarchy. There's people who don't follow the rules and they get everything. If something bad happens, I can go to, mom and complain and she can't do anything about it. And all this structure that we were promised, all these rules and directions that we were promised would pan out for us are not really there. Have always been kind of an illusion or something we've aspired to and can't really control. So yeah, on top of having all those problems to deal with, we also have to deal with this great big disillusionment and going
Yeah.
I'm speaking for myself here, but like what this poem captures for me, that whole 10 years of life, the 20s are just like feeling betrayed and bamboozled and then just lost.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I
And
mhm.
you've been sold this pretty picture, and it's like one of those pictures you look at it in a different light and there's the skeleton face.
Yep. Yes, absolutely. Or, the monkey's paw, you ask for the thing, you get it, it turns out it's not really what you wanted. I'm
Right.
curious when you were a teacher and you were a high school teacher, would you tell students hey, I don't know anything and don't believe anything your teachers say? Or did you like try to, embody for them some kind of reasonable authority figure?
I was really, I think I was really pretty honest with them about it. I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
well, you know, I, yeah, I was honest. I didn't pretend I was any kind of authority on much of anything. Like, I more wanted to hear what they had to say because I
Mm,
was teaching English, so I wanted to get their viewpoints. I was
yeah.
very much into empowering them um, to speak and to discover things about themselves, honestly. Um, I didn't try to tell anybody, you know, that it's going to work out great for you if you work hard.
Yeah.
Um, but, at the same time, you do have to be motivating. And
Yes.
I understand why they tell us all those things because they want to get you into the best college that you can go to. They want you to work hard. They want you to be prepared for life. But the thing is, they don't really prepare you for life.
Yep. 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 Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that's a big part of what my anger during my 20s was about. Something your poem reminds me of, I think for a lot of us who turn towards poetry, we are kind of looking for that meaning, that ability to take all this muck we have and at least pass it on to someone else as a form of something. Don't know if it's wisdom, but maybe just, some kind of like, hey, you're a fellow traveler. One of my students once told me, I think he was a ninth, maybe 10th grader when he said this. He was like, hey, Miss Hefner, she made me really depressed, but at least she taught me how to turn depression into poetry. And to this day, I'm still not sure if that was a compliment or not, but that is one thing I have been able to pass on to people is like, hey, this is the stuff. At least you can turn it into a song and sing it to the next generation. Which I think brings me to your next poem, the next poem that you selected to read, because that is one that is about you and your daughter and some more dialogue between one generation and the next. So, would you go ahead and read that poem?
Yeah, this is from a book that doesn't have a publisher yet.
Okay.
It's kind of about being diagnosed with ADHD and getting on meds for the first time, and going through the process of stripping away years and years of shame and guilt. Um, but also, my daughter going through something similar. And so we are kind of like very similar ways of perceiving the world, I think. And
Mm,
so we were talking about all these people inside of us, um, in terms of their function. Anyway,
Yeah.
13. My daughter and I talk about all the different people inside of us, how the watcher usually isn't the one in control, but is perched on a chair at the side of the pool with a black coffee and a fake cigarette, dressed elegantly in mist and holding a pistol. We didn't talk about that part, but it's still valid. As the ego and the false selves thrash about in the water, and the scared child cowers on the steps, the watcher sips, smokes, shoots a hand that grips the deck too close, giggles a bit, writes notes that are really insincere confessions, pisses in the bushes at intervals. Can't she come over and help us? My daughter asks. At which point, the watchers in our heads fall off their chairs in laughter, dust off the gunpowder and ash, refill the barrel.
I think when you
It's
read
super
that,
dark.
yeah, when you read that, you qualified it by saying it's super dark. And first of all, that's fine by me. That's fine by me. Dark, but it's expressing something that maybe we need to give voice to. And what do you do with something dark? Well, you show it some sunlight. Then it's not as scary. Tell me a little bit about this. Where did this idea come from? These watchers, like, what does that mean to you?
Well, we actually had a discussion about this. We were, she's kind of going through this thing where in her head, she says, I don't really know why I do things, and I don't feel like I have complete control over why I do things. And I said, okay, well, in your head, right, there's the thoughts, there's the train of thoughts that are going through,
Yeah.
sometimes very quickly. And then there's the part of you that is somewhat detached that can look at the thoughts. And the
Yeah.
person who's detached that's looking at the thoughts, I said, that's kind of like the watcher. That's the person who maybe you really are, and the thoughts are just thoughts. Um, and she says, well, why doesn't the watcher help me then?
Mm.
And then yeah, and then we talked about, you know, if the watcher is there at the side of the pool, why isn't he saving the people in the pool that are in there that could be having trouble swimming? And didn't really have a good answer for that besides, well, that person is kind of detached. It's kind of like, I don't know, in Freudian terms, be like the super ego, kind of like
Mm.
the one who, the higher self, quote unquote, the one who's kind of like in meditation, the one who is quiet and watching all the talking go. Um, and I don't know if that is the person that really has control or not, um, or at least provides a perspective to part of you that can do the daily control.
Hmm.
Um, it was just kind of a fascinating discussion of, the different the different sections of consciousness and how much
Yeah.
control one has over the other.
Yeah. This does sound a lot like what people who practice meditation talk about, which is that, you learn to identify with the part of yourself that is watching all the thoughts, not identify with the thoughts themselves.
Right.
And that is an interesting question. One I haven't thought of that. Well, why doesn't the watcher help? I'm not even sure what that would look like exact. I kind of think like the point of meditation, anyways, is that when you identify with the watcher, then the thoughts themselves just kind of lose some of their power, and you realize they're just thoughts and they're passing. So that on its own
Right.
is kind of a help. But what this poem is doing is I just gotta tell you, I just really love it. Like, forget about what it might mean psychologically or whatever. To think about these watchers who are just watching and they've like you're smoking cigarettes and loading a gun. I kind of feel like, yeah, that's what my watcher does sometimes. Sometimes my watcher's just having a great time and doesn't really care what
Oh,
you're
she's
going through.
right. Like, oh wow, you're gonna make that decision. Okay, well, it's the popcorn out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just
All
like
right.
it's entertaining. I don't know. You do you identify as Gen X? I think that would be
Yeah.
yeah. So I was because I'm not Gen X, but I was raised by Gen X, and all the movies I saw were like Gen X movies. And so I'm just like, that generation kind of had this attitude of like, well, fuck it. There's nothing we can do. Just watch and become jaded and cynical and smoke your smoke your cigarettes and watch reality fights and that kind of thing. And so I feel like maybe we've all kind of got a little of that going on with us. But this next generation underneath us seems to have evolved a little bit more. And
Yeah.
they're more active. They're more active. They're more proactive, I think.
And they're much more accepting of everybody, like
Yeah.
there's, I mean, unless they are brought up in a super, like, I'm just going to say it, racist household or something like that, where their parents are really teaching them all of the paradigms of the past. The
Yeah.
newer generations seem to be, at least in the cities, seem to be very aware of differences of people and allowing people to be whoever they want to be. And there's no question of like, oh, you identify as this, as this, as this. That's great. Do it.
Yeah.
Do you? Do
Yeah.
you? That's great. Why not? Um, I feel like with the newer generations, though, that there's also like, and I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but I was always like brought up with a work ethic, like you got to work hard and
Yeah.
that's going to get you places, right? And these next generations are just no, they're not, no, not like that at all. Unless
So
they're
say
in
a
something
little,
they really want to do.
yeah, say a little more about this because I don't have this line to the next generation that I think you do raising kids. So say a little more about what you're noticing there.
It's just inability to do work for work's sake. Like we were just
Mm,
taught, well, get out there and work hard. They're just like,
yeah.
screw that. What's in it for me? Like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just gonna say no to you right away. Um, and we weren't really like ever given a choice.
Yeah.
There was no choice. Like you were going to do it. Like there's no choices. Like on the swim team, I was never given a choice. Do you want to swim on a swim team? It was just put in there. My parents just signed me up for that shit. You know what I mean? And now the kids are like, do you want to do this or this? And I'm sure that went on in my generation too, but it was much less common.
Hmm.
So I think that we were just kind of like, you got to do what your parents tell you,
Yeah.
because that's just the way it is, right? And you have to work hard because that's how you get anything. And
Hmm.
nowadays, they see through that right away, like, well, I'm not really going to work hard on that. I don't really have to. Um, like I said, what's in it for me? Um,
Well,
they're just much.
let me ask,
Go
what do
ahead.
you think is causing that? What is causing that generational paradigm shift in your mind?
Well, I think they've been given more choices, which
Hmm.
is good. Things are easier. There's much more
Mm.
technology. It's
Yeah.
easier to do things. There's not as much manual labor, to be honest, right? There is, but
Yeah.
there isn't. There is, but
Yes.
there isn't, right? So, and a lot of the things can be done easier now. Um, but it's this kind of there's no ingrained work ethic at all. Like, oh, I'll do it soon, or I'll do it whenever. Like, and I think that a lot of the motivation comes from parents that are strict, because a lot of
Hmm.
parents are still strict, especially, certain cultures are very strict on their kids. You're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, and that's the end of the discussion. That's
Yeah.
certainly still going on. certainly still going on these days,
Right, right.
but much less in some cultures, um, where they're just like, okay, well, I don't really have to work that hard to get the required result. And I
Well,
don't really buy into this work ethic thing. Like, no, work work for just work's sake is stupid. Why? That's just not a thing.
well, if I may, push back a little bit. And first of all, I just want to say, like, whenever we're talking about a generalization, we're talking about a trend. Everyone's experience is different. There's plenty of kids I know who work for work's sake. There's plenty of adults I know who don't. So
Right.
don't anyone get too offended here. If you don't feel like this
Right.
applies to you, then we're not talking to you. Don't worry about it. What
Right.
I would say that I sort of notice because I've heard this, and what my understanding and belief is in some ways, kids today, the younger generation, they do have it actually a lot harder in some ways. There's more pressure to always be beautiful on your Instagram photos and things like that. But
Uh-huh.
certainly there's less need for manual labor, absolutely, because so much is available and can be, had with the press of a button. So in some ways it is so much easier in that way, but then in other ways it's like, well, income inequality is getting worse, and some might just feel like it's impossible to do the things that we're supposed to do, so they're a little bit and then to the discussion we were having before, where it's like, well, in the past we were told work hard and you'll get something, and now what we're seeing is like people working really hard and like not even being able to afford a house, and other people just, what do you call it, cheating the system and getting everything. So it's like, yeah, of course they're not going to follow the instructions to like work for work's sake. We're noticing that that's been kind of a scam. Anyways, I'm speaking on behalf of my generation, which is the generation right after yours, Scott.
Yes. Yes, which my wife belongs to. And I think there's really not that much difference between Gen X and what you call yourself a millennial.
Yes, yeah. And now the
Yeah.
next gen is like what, Gen Z, the Zennials, I
Gen
think.
Z. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, both my daughter and my son are just very wildly different and they don't fit the stereotypes. But like you said, the generalities of, how much work are these kids willing to do, and how much I think it's more like a willingness, or not a willingness, but like they're understanding what works for them and what doesn't work for them earlier in the game than we did.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's great. That's great. So it's kind of like a self-awareness and like, well, I'm not going to really listen to what society tells me I'm supposed to do. I'm going to go ahead and do me. That's great. And I think that's positive direction.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I feel like everyone complains about the next generation, but it's like, well, how do you think society changes? What do you think? You think we're going to be the same way we were in the 1800s, 1700s, 1600s? You want it to stay the same? No, we're going to move forward. We're changing. This is what change looks like. It's going to be different. So,
Absolutely.
um,
Um,
going back to the poem, I'm really curious. I mean, that poem is really, we got really off topic with this whole Generation X thing. With your poem, it sounded like the watcher is this, kind of cynical, jaded person just smoking a cigarette and watching. Did your daughter write a response of her own, like who her watcher is, or have you guys continued on that conversation?
Kind of. She identifies with the watcher, but I
Mm,
feel like she's also really kind of still uh she's 14, so she's really stuck in just this engagement and drama and whirlwind of life.
Hmm.
And it's kind of hard to disengage being that age and seeing things from an objective standpoint,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
definitely.
it's kind of like she's not there yet. Um, but I would just kind of wanted to let her know, well, that part of you that is watching is there. Now, in the poem, I definitely, it's fictional, of course, and I kind of had some fun with it, making it kind of this noir kind of dark villainous creature on the side of the pool. It's not really that.
Of
I took liberties and I had some fun with it, right? Because it
course,
was
yeah,
going the direction. But I think that's fun to do in poetry. You don't always have to be serious, or write things completely honestly either. Um, because it's a poem, it's a
hmm.
creation, right? You're not in church, you know.
Or on the witness stand at a
Right. Right.
on trial. Yeah,
So it's kind of have some fun with it. And that's kind of something that I've always kept, and been doing more of. And I really like when artists and poets, they just do whatever the F they want,
yeah.
and don't really listen to editors or the status quo of what's popular nowadays, and they just write whatever the F they want to write or
Hmm.
play. I think those are the people that I'm usually gravitated towards.
Yeah, it's so interesting. The things that we often admire in the arts are the things that would get us fired in any other job. Like, listen to your own heart and figure it out, you know? And then if you do it really well, then you become famous, and then the establishment picks up your voice and starts teaching you to the next generation, and it makes you think that wild creative rebel is actually like part of the standard canon. It's just such a funny
Right.
paradox, I think. Yeah.
Well, it kind of makes me think of Diane Seuss, and I always thought of her voice as being really pretty original and kind of dark and
Hmm.
edgy, right? But
Yeah,
now, but
yeah.
she's become so famous and so commonplace that type of her voice is being taught, and which I love because I love her work. Um, but it's interesting that now are people going to be emulating that or not?
Oh, they will. I am. I can tell you from experience. Like I read Diane
Yeah.
Seuss's Frank, and then I just go, rewrite all of my poems so that they're sonnets and super intense. Cut everything down to 14 lines, jam it all together. And then I have to walk myself back and be like, Diane Seuss already did Diane Seuss. You have to do something else.
Right.
I mean, that's everyone. I think that's everyone. We imitate the people that we love, and then eventually we kind of find our own thing. No one really wants a no one really wants a copycat, so don't bother,
Yeah, and when I think somebody asked online the other day of what does poetry need? It was a very open-ended question, and I said, well, I think for me it's weirdness and surprise in poetry. I want to be a little bit shocked, a little bit surprised. I don't want to read the same poem. I want to read something that's going to be like, oh, and then throw me off a little bit. I want to
Yes.
have some fun, right? I want to have a little fun. I don't want to read the same confessional poem over and over again. So I try to do that in my poetry, and I mean, we're using words, right? So use interesting words, use words that aren't normal, normal,
Yeah.
quote unquote. Have some fun. Throw in crap that you would never think about throwing in because why not? And it makes it so much more interesting and vital. Um, anyway, I try to do that. I don't always succeed.
No, that's wonderful. I'm getting so many great ideas for prompts from this discussion. I want to know everyone, who's your watcher? Because we've all got a different watcher. What would you say to your 26-year-old? Or, if you're a young poet, what would you say to your 16-year-old self, your 6-year-old self, and so on and so forth? I think these are all these kinds of great, very chewy topics that we can all chew on, but we're all going to say wildly different things. And I was actually just telling someone this morning, and I was telling myself this at the beginning of the year. Back in January, I thought, what words have I not used in a poem? And
Yeah.
I need to come up with all new words that I haven't used in a poem and tried to make a list. And it's really not that easy. Especially, I don't have a physical dictionary anymore. I can't go to the internet and just be like, which words have I not used in a poem? How are you gathering new words?
Well, sometimes it'll just pop in there and I won't have the word completely right. Like,
Mhm.
I'll be like, I know that there's a word like that. And then I'll type in what I think it's spelled like. And then
Mm,
it'll pop up. I'm like, oh, that's the word I was looking for. Or maybe it's completely wrong. Like, it'll pop in there and I'll be like, oh. And then honestly, sometimes I'll use the thesaurus online.
yeah.
Um, I I don't have any problem using a thesaurus, to be honest with you. It because you're still choosing the words. It's not
Oh,
like
yeah.
the thesaurus is choosing the words for you, and you get so many juicy, unusual words, and that's kind of like our bread and butter, right? So why not? Why not? And I'm always I like scientific words. I like specific names of places and names um, and technical terms and all
Mhm.
those kind of stuff makes a poem so much more spicy.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing to do is like, what words have you not used before? Yeah. Well, which subjects have you not read about? Go read about those
Mhm.
subjects. You'll get a bunch of words you've never used before. Uh,
Right.
and science is, science and nature, you think we know it all at this point, but it's like, scientists are still discovering bugs that they've never seen. I saw not long ago the most wonderful but deceptive headline. It was so great. It was something like, scientists discover dragons in a cave in Malaysia. And I'm like, what is this, The Onion? What is this? And I click on it and it's like, yeah, these little insects, they have wings that are like the shape of a dragon. And so they're basically like dragons, but they're just like, like no more than half an inch wide and they fly like dragons would fly. And I'm like, what's the power of a good headline? Is that it's not completely untrue, but it really did make this seem a lot more exciting than it actually is. But we're always learning new things, so we got new things we can write about.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, we're getting towards the end of the hour here, and this has just been such a fun discussion. Um, for for poets who are listening to us, it occurs to me what I said earlier is that I didn't feel like there were a lot of poets in my 20s who were writing about being in their 20s. It's not entirely true. I mean, there's slam poetry and button poetry, especially has a lot of young poets, but they seem to be young poets writing about what's on their mind that day. Um, and it's different when you're 30, 40, 50 looking
Oh yeah.
back on it, you
Oh yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Uh, so I just want to make an invitation to anyone listening to us. Hey, if you've got great poems or books you would recommend to people in their 20s, maybe those books that would help a person through their 20s, late teens, 20s, early 30s, written from hindsight or even written in the moment, like please put that in Substack in the chat under the YouTube video. Email me directly. I really want to know what those books are. I really want there to be more of them.
Absolutely. And in our 20s, I mean, I tried to write poetry that was like the experience of what I was going through, but for some reason it's too close.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
too close and it's too chaotic still to make reason to make. I mean, you could rant and you can emote, but it feels like it takes years for it to uh come into something where it makes any kind of linear sense.
Yeah, and also I don't know, it's like, well, if somebody really can give you all those answers, like how are you going to learn? And also they're going to give you the answers that worked for them 10, 20, 30 years ago. So like how are you going to learn? You kind
Right.
of yeah. I really don't do this very often, but I do because this is a topic that is so near and dear to my heart. Um, and I have written about it so much. I would like to read a poem that I think speaks to what we've been talking about.
I
Um,
would love that.
I've never done this to anyone else. I mean, I usually want to put the attention on you, but this is just something that I think you and I can find agreement on.
Absolutely.
Um, and I hope I can find it. Yeah. This is a poem that I have put this on my Instagram, and I believe a version of it is coming out in a book of pop culture, edited by he's a Moontide Press author. And I really love his work, and I'm so blanking on his name. JD Isip, like I sip my
Oh
tea.
yeah,
Anyways,
he's great.
oh, yeah, so I should know when this comes out. But anyways, it'll be coming out eventually. Anyways, so the poem is called What I Wish My Therapist Had Said to Me. Make more mistakes more quickly. Hold your boombox under the wrong window in the wrong city, the worst time of day. Chant love
Mhm.
songs to the worst wailers, the dumbest sonnets. Chant your best love sonnets under the worst windows. Lose yourself in all the doomed causes. Drive all night to hear the songless sing. None of us know when the sun will tumble apart, the condor will go extinct, or your 10-second meme will go viral. We're all full of debt, drowned in dreams. So wear a condom. Protect your PIN number. Don't let anyone touch you in your special private bank account. The price of living is falling, failing, fueling up the gas tank, wishing you had done it all differently. But if you do, don't worry. It's happened to all of us, especially me. Of course, me. I'm a therapist. I'm not laughing at you, just taking notes as you follow that man onto his unlicensed whaling vessel and doing all the other stupid, necessary things we both know you are inevitably going to do. More mistakes,
So
more mistakes.
so perfect for our discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only like really strong pieces of advice that everyone should know are things like, use protection and make sure your PIN number is kept private. Everything else, like, just kind of figure it out on your own. Oh, but have someone there who can
Because
listen
you
and
will anyhow,
talk to
or
you.
you won't, right?
I mean, absolutely, absolutely. Scott, this has just been so great chatting with you, and I can't wait for the next book whenever it comes out and watching the ways that you continue giving advice to your kids through your poems. That seems like that's gonna, well, I loved hearing the poems. We'll see how much the kids actually take that advice as you
Yeah,
continue
well,
writing.
right. I'm not going to hold my breath, but my daughter herself is a poet, so hopefully she'll keep creating, and it's lovely to see.
That is great. And yeah, someday she'll be giving us the advice, and then she'll be giving the kids the advice that they won't listen to either. And
Right. It will be karmic retribution. Dun dun dun.
that's it. We
Not
all
that
get
I
our
want that.
revenge. Well, I hope to see you again in person one of these days. And if I don't see you, at AWP this year, I'll see you next time I see you, whenever that is.
Uh, Trisha, I really appreciate you having me on the show and a lovely conversation. And I'm trying to be at Chicago, so maybe then.
Yeah, I'll cross my fingers. But you have my email, so don't be a stranger, and we'll chat again soon.
All right. Bye.
All right, take care. Have a safe drive.